when it comes to what our goal is here when you come into this ministry, whether you're coming here for, from outside, because these meetings are open to everybody, our conquering classes, where we teach you the conquering skills of a believer so that you don't have to continue to be conquered, or you don't have to continue to cope, because most every program that you go to is going to teach you coping skills, which we are not against coping skills. I think that you should cope as long as you don't have the opportunity to conquer, okay? And when you are presented with an opportunity to conquer some area of your life that has been conquering you or defeating you, then you ought to exchange the coping skill for the conquering skill as much as possible, okay? The more that you use the conquering skill over the coping skill, the more that you will defeat whatever it is that's been defeating you, rather than the other way around. That goes for your emotions, okay? That goes for your willpower. That goes for your brain or your thought life, okay? And that also goes for the evil that you face in this world, okay? And part of that evil includes you. Part of that evil includes demons, devils, seducing spirits, all that stuff. And either you believe the Bible or you don't, and you can't have it both ways. It's either one or the other. It includes this world. We live in an evil world. You don't have to, look around very hard to realize that this world is wicked. There's a lot of bad stuff that happens, and anyone in this room at some point in your life has seen something awful happen and say, like, man, that is just so awful. That is so horrible. And it seems like we're seeing it more and more and more than ever before as we continue to look around, okay? So you come here for the purpose of learning conquering skills. And sometimes one of the things that we need to learn how to do is we need to learn how to put our recovery only second to our relationship with God. Okay? Now, I don't know how important your recovery is to you. Only you actually know how important your recovery is to you. Okay? We have sacrificed many things on the altar, right? Laid it down there on the altar of not having recovery. Okay? Yeah. Why don't you write down on a piece of paper how much you have sacrificed on the altar of not having a recovery? In other words, your addiction. What have you sacrificed for your addiction? What have you given up? What have you paid? How much does it cost you? While you're doing that, just keep doing it, it's fine. On the other side of that piece of paper, write down what your addiction gave you, what it provided for you. This is vital to your recovery because it gives you kind of a good perspective of what you're looking at, and when you can see what's on one side of the page and what's on the other side of the page, then you can see what you're truly getting and what you're not getting, how you're being lied to by your addiction.
Amen.
And yet you choose not to believe in your recovery. Okay. And I'm going to try to help you because I've been dealing with this, number one, for about 14 years with people. Okay? So I also come from a background of addictions myself. You guys know that. Okay? So it's not like I'm speaking out of non-experience or I'm speaking about something I don't know about. The reason many times I can know exactly what's going through your head is because I know exactly what was going through my head. When I can tell you what you're being told by whatever it is you're being told by, whether your addiction is alcohol, whether your addiction is crack cocaine, whether your addiction is methamphetamines, whether your addiction is dirty perks, whether your addiction is pornography, whether your addiction is whatever it is, or whether you are having a struggle, an emotional problem, because guess what? We all got emotions too, so I can know what it's like to be mad, I can know what it's like to be depressed, I can know what it's like to feel like committing suicide, I can know what it's like to feel like just giving up on everything, throwing in the towel, walking away, isolating myself. I can know all those things, just like anybody else, because we all deal with those things. I can know what it's like to be pulled in a direction by something stronger than me that I can't seem to say no to. And it just keeps pulling on me and keeps pulling on me and keeps pulling on me. And I'm like trying to fight the pull the whole time, and yet I'm still walking aimlessly towards whatever that is. Okay? Because when you've been there, you've been there. And when you've done that and you've got the t-shirt, or you've got a whole closet full of t-shirts because you've been there so many times, then you understand it. Okay? But when you look at that list, the truth is, on one side of that list, it's probably cost most of us everything that really mattered to us. And when we are in our addiction, if we're truthful, there's really not a whole lot that matters to us but our addiction. Okay? Everything else is worth it. That's the lie. Okay, everything else is worth it. I'm willing to pay it all. I'm willing to sacrifice everything. I'm willing to give it all up just for my addiction. On the beneficial side of your addiction, there's only a perceived benefit. There is a temporary perception of feeling good because immediately, most of the time, immediately, or very shortly after I've done whatever I was that I did that I thought was going to make me feel good, I end up feeling really bad. If not the same night, then usually the next morning. So within a 24-hour period of what I thought was going to be great, it ends up being horrible. Okay? And so that's why I can want recovery for everybody in the room. And I can want victory for everybody in the room, and you can want recovery, and everybody else can want recovery for you, but that doesn't really matter. If your recovery isn't as important to you as it is to me, you are not going to get recovery. Okay? That's a fact. Because if your recovery is not that important to you, then you're not going to end up getting recovery because it's not that important to you. Okay? All right. So next to your relationship in God, your relationship with God, the most important thing needs to be your recovery. Okay? If your problem, because remember we said that the addiction is a symptom of the true problem. The true problem is a heart problem. The heart problem is what gives me the most problems, right? Mm-hmm. So if your biggest problem isn't your addiction, but it is your emotions, then that's what you need to get recovery from. You need to get emotional recovery. Okay? You can have emotional recovery from God. You can't tell me that God cannot recover you from anything that you're going through, because God can recover anybody from anything, no matter how bad it seems. The worst case scenarios, there's nothing impossible for God to recover you out of. Okay? Nothing. And if you personally believe that, and I don't want you to say it for my sake, but if you personally believe that God is able to recover you from any situation, say amen. Amen. All right. So I don't want you to say it for my sake. I want you to say that to God. I believe you can recover me. Okay? God is a God of recovery. Always has been. Recovery is a God thing. Man did not invent recovery. There's nothing new under the sun. God has been recovering people as long as people have existed. Pulling them out of their stupid situations. And I'll underline the word stupid because I have plenty of my own. Their dumb choices. Their bad decisions. Time and time again, His people going down there and pulling them out of that situation, out of that decision, out of that place. Now, some of the things we deal with are generational. I agree with that. Okay, I do believe in generational curses, but God can recover you out of a generational curse. Generational curse. Recovery. Okay? You got to want it. And the truth is, some people don't really want recovery. They're not willing to pay. What was the price that you paid for your addiction? What was on that one side of that paper that you paid for your addiction? Okay. What did it give you? Absolutely nothing. What did it take? Absolutely everything. All right. What did you pay for nothing? Everything. What would you pay for something? For a lot of us, nothing. I'm not willing to sacrifice a single thing for my recovery. I'm not willing to give anything. I'm not willing to change anything. I'm not willing to give an hour. I'm not willing to give 2 hours. I'm not willing to sacrifice any of that. Either my recovery is going to come instant, it's going to come from, it's going to be a miracle, it's going to be a complete deliverance from God, or it's going to be all of a sudden somebody has the right pill for me and all of a sudden it's going to be an instant thing, or I am not going to have recovery. Now, is that how you did your addiction? With your addiction, you would give anything for your addiction. But man, for recovery, I'm not really willing to give a whole lot. Either it's going to work or it's not going to work. You see what I'm saying? You need to be willing to take everything that you paid for your addiction and turn around and put it over here on your recovery, and be willing to put everything that all those sacrifices that you made, you need to do that for your recovery. Okay? Your relationship with Christ. Put it all, okay? So, when we talk about your recovery and how important it is, you guys are going to have to be very detailed. I was a detailed addict. I would figure out ways. I would go to great lengths. I would do everything I could to make sure that I could continue in my addiction. Whatever I had to do, right? I want to remain in my addiction to the point of literally, figuring out ways to get in fights with people, figuring out ways to get upset, planning the whole thing out before it ever happened, and detailed plan of how I'm going to end up going out and getting high later. Okay, detailed. All right, you need to have the same detailed plan of thinking when it comes to your recovery. How am I going to handle this? So I'm going to give you guys a thought today that I've shared at one other time with our groups, and that's going to be minding your recovery P's and Q's. Your recovery P's and Q's, or your spiritual P's and Q's. But this time we're going to be focused on your recovery. Okay, your recovery. All right. If you just go at your recovery flippantly with zero thought and just kind of throw a whole bunch of stuff against the wall and hope that something sticks, chances are slim to none that you're actually going to find recovery. Okay? One of the reasons we go through these classes and we come here and we go through the things that we do, we put you guys through the Nevertheless I Live material, and we make sure to go through the Engaging Effectually Our Emotions material. We do the Spiritual Warfare material, and we go through the Conquering Skills is because we want you to be able to have a good amount of knowledge when it comes to being able to overcome the powers that be, so to speak. Overcoming your flesh, overcoming your emotions, overcoming your enemies, overcoming your circumstances, overcoming your storms, because you're going to have to learn how to overcome all that or be victorious in all that if you're ever going to be victorious in your addiction, okay? And if somebody tells you to mind your P's and Q's, what are they saying to you? Raise your hand. Somebody raise your hand and tell me. Go ahead, Maureen.
Peace and quiet.
Okay, that's what a lot of people think. That's not exactly what it's saying, but it's saying mind your P's and Q's. What were you thinking, Josh?
Be on top of your game.
Be on top of your game. That's more like it. Okay, what were you
Be
thinking?
knowledgeable of what you're doing.
Be knowledgeable of what you're doing. It was an old English idiom that was meant to say, make sure you pay attention to the details. God is in the details. He is a very detailed God. When you look around at nature, you can see so much detail in what God created. If God wasn't in the details, we would all burn up. Because if we were any closer to the sun, it'd be an inferno. Okay? If God wasn't in the details, we'd all freeze to death. If God wasn't in the details, then we wouldn't have all that we need to survive, because there's a lot of details that goes into making something just as simple as the air that you're breathing right now. The oxygen. Details. And whenever God had his people do something that was worth doing, that ended up lasting or ended up, having God use it, he did so with great detail. So everybody say detail.
Details.
Okay. If you want to have recovery that does not fail, how many of you want to go 3 months and waste 3 months of your time? Nobody wants to waste 3 months of your time? Okay. How many of y'all want to go 6 months and waste 6 months of your time? How about a year? Waste 1 year of your time. How about 2 years? How about 5 years? How many of us have wasted 6 months, 3 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years of my time? And it's going to be on this precipice. Details. You stopped paying attention to the details of your recovery. You stopped being focused on the little things that you needed to keep doing. Right? The good things that you needed to stay doing, so you didn't end up going back doing the bad things you have no business doing. Because it doesn't just happen overnight. Right? I did not become a crackhead in one day. I didn't become a meth head in one day. And I certainly didn't become an alcoholic in one day. Or a pothead. I'm busy, you're just a head. It's whatever drug I can put in my head. Okay? And by the way, there's no difference between alcohol and drugs. So let's just go ahead and kill that right there. Yeah, I can't stand well, I don't do drugs, I just drink. You do drugs. You do the one legal drug, or now not the only one, but you do the one longest legal drug in America. The one that has killed more people, destroyed more homes, cost more money, done more damage, caused more suicide than any other drug there's been. Okay? So it's all the same across the board. You stop paying attention to the details. Now, is your recovery important to you?
Yes.
Do you want to keep ending up in the same place that you've been ending up for as long as you've been ending up there? Do you want to be somewhere different? Do you want to stop going around in circles? Do you want to stop ending up at that dead end every single time? Then you got to mind your recovery P's and Q's. Okay? And so I'm going to give you, first of all, when it comes to your P's. How long have we been going? Anybody got an idea?
21.
We'll give you guys one longer class today.
It's been 18 minutes.
Okay, we're fine. So beginning with your P's. All right. Number 1, mind your participation. All right. The truth is, your flesh doesn't want to do anything when it comes to your recovery. Your flesh is against your recovery. Because what you're addicted to is what your flesh loves.
Yeah.
And if you won't participate in your own recovery, I don't care how bad I want you to have recovery, you ain't going to get recovery, because there's no participation on your end when it comes to your recovery. And I'll just be honest with you, I'm amazed at the amount of people that have an addiction that come to a recovery program that don't want to participate in their recovery. Blows my mind. It's like, well, what did you come to a recovery program for if you don't want to participate in a recovery program? We are by far not the most stringent recovery program there is, because you can go to Trosha, which is way more than us, or you can go to Hope Center. Kevin, did you go to the Hope Center?
About 3 months.
Yeah, and what did they have you do the entire 3 months you were there? You told me what they had you do. What did you say?
From like 4:35 in the morning, you're going and doing something till about 10 o'clock at night.
10 o'clock at night, every day. And what happens if you don't do it?
You kick out or you leave.
I'm saying that if you go to the Durham Rescue Mission, they have requirements that you have to do. You have to work 40 hours a week. If you go to Trosha, they've got requirements you've got to do. If you go to any recovery program there is, you're going there for recovery, and that requires a program. That requires some things that you have to do. So I'm trying to say that now there are some cases where you have some medical reasons, which I think that we've been more than understanding with all that and try to be, okay? But that's not my point. That's not the point I'm making. The point I am making is this, is that you have to mind your participation, okay? Now, I do love this idea. When you go to NA or you go to AA, they tell you the secret or one of the main things you need to do in order to get your recovery is you need to, in the first 90 days, you need to make sure that you're at what? 90 meetings, okay? 90 meetings, all right? What we do when we bring you in here is, honestly, if you think about it, in the first 90 days, you're going to end up being in about 90 different meetings. The difference is you're going to be in Christ-centered, faith-based recovery meetings the entire time, which should do a whole lot more for you. But the other difference is this. Your flesh probably would not resist 90 days of NA nearly much as it would 90 days of Christ. Not saying because not every NA meeting you go to. As a matter of fact, everyone I've ever been to besides one was not godly. As a matter of fact, I heard a lot of very ungodly, vulgar stuff and bad stuff in a lot of those meetings. Okay, but that's a whole nother story altogether. So, mind your participation. Do you want recovery? Do you want to continue to pay the price of your addiction? Do you want to continue to give everything for nothing? Okay? It costs you relationships. It costs you freedoms. It costs you, some of it costs us custody. Some of it costs us being able to be, it costs us, trust. How many of us have paid the price of trust for an addiction? Nobody trusts me. Everywhere I go, everybody's looking at me, wondering if I'm going to take something. Watch her. Watch them. There they are. Keep your eye on them. Right? Well, I mean, but I'm being, again, I was there. Trying to sell my jacket, trying to sell whatever I can, just anything, just trying to find something, steal something, whatever. Okay, so the other thing is, so mind your participation. Those 90 meetings in 90 days, make it to 90 meetings that we go to in 90 days. Do some things different, because part of, when you participate in these things that you normally didn't do, it's good because you're doing things you normally don't do. And it takes time to readjust my routine. Okay, we're used to not doing certain things, right? So I have to get used to doing certain things. You understand what I'm saying? If I'm not going to be doing those things that I was doing, then I certainly can't just sit around all the time, because if I sit around all the time, then I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to be thinking about the things that I was doing before, and I'm not replacing what I was doing before with anything new, and so I'm just thinking about what I was doing before, and I'm just basically thinking my way back to where I used to be. You don't want to stay idle in your recovery. You got to participate. You want to get involved, okay? So once you get the 90 meetings in 90 days, the truth is, the first 60 days, I see the most increase in godliness in people that come into this ministry, because after that, they get a job, and their meetings decrease immensely. Okay? If we were at a place, and this is the God's honest truth, if we were at a place where we were financially supported in such a way, I wouldn't let none of you work the entire time you were here. I would say, y'all just going to stay here, and you're going to stay in these classes, you're going to stay in these church services, and you're not going to go anywhere for 9 months. And you're gonna, and except for the places that we go and do the things we do good works for people. And the reason I'm saying that is because I see such a decrease the moment people begin to go to work. And you know what decreases the most of all is their attendance to the meetings, or their attendance while they're in the meetings. Because you can be here and, as we've said, not be here. Okay, participation, right? If I'm falling asleep and snoring in the back row and can't take it no more, all those things. So I mean that's bad. Okay. All right, let me give you this, and we're going to take a break, okay? So after I go the 90 days, 90 meetings, then the minimum I need to have is 3 meetings a week. The minimum. And when I say meetings, I mean church services personally, and I mean all the services, like whether it's a prayer meeting or whether it's a going out soul winning or something that is different, a different practice that is developing different behavioral patterns out of my life. Because if tomorrow you're going out, Lois, and let's say the last 6 weeks, you're witnessing everywhere you go. You're handing people gospel tracts. You're telling people about Jesus all the time. You don't miss any of that stuff. And then the next time, you see that same person that you used to know, but they saw you handing out gospel tracts. I'm telling you, that is going to help you in your recovery. Because you're going to think twice before you go over there and give place to your addiction, because they done seen you out there doing that other stuff, and it affects your behavior. Now, if they don't ever see you doing anything different, they're not going to respect, and honestly, you're not going to respect it either. Right? There's got to be a different behavioral pattern. Okay? So mind your participation. One more, when it comes to this first part of it, okay? You guys have a book that costs, I think the whole program was, $70. I think total cost of books, maybe 50 to 70. I think it's 70 though, honestly. Those of you that got the little books, those of you got the bigger books, the challenge books, those of you that have got, all the stuff. So what I'm saying is we've given you guys what is the equivalent of like 10-step studies. If you go through it and participate with it and actually do it with the intent of getting something out of it and not just getting it done, but truly letting it affect me. Does that make sense? Like I can take a test just to take a test. How many of y'all have taken a test just to take a test and it's like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S. Hope I get a good grade. But if that's how you go about your recovery, then you're missing it. You're not going to get it, okay? It has to be more important than that to you, okay? All right, so let's stop there. And then number 1, when it comes to our first P, our recovery P's and Q's, mind your participation, okay? All right, and we'll look at another one in just a minute. So we'll take a break there. If you want to cut that, we can take a break there.